Anyway, where was I? Ben's tapes. I'm going to start with one of the atypical tapes. This is an important one, because this is fairly near the beginning of the intensive recording period, during that time when Ben and I were still playing with the phone, but starting to record, too. In December 1973, the great panel Sender Tandem of New York City, Suburban Tandem, was still in existence, and we were taking it for granted. To us, it was a dirty old gargoyle of a thing, not very fun to listen to. The connections weren't as good as the Crossbar tandems that were in the network. And yet, that was the thing that we should have been making extensive tapes of. Here's one of the few, as Ben calls the 394 loop around and speaks briefly to Dave.
Hello.
Good morning.
Oh, very nice to be on the 394 loop around.
You could say that.
Why, with an ring combination 08, supervising until what?
The 212 area.
Right. Yeah, I got this down on tape.
On, December 8th, 1973.
Right. Is there anything we can record on here that might be interesting?
No.
Okay, now we'll switch. You get on the tone side now.
See you and see it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi.
Good morning.
Okay, fine, we got this set up. Okay, hang up and go back.
Go back when?
To, 620. Bye-bye.
All of Ben's early tapes are recorded from the Belle Harbor No. 1 Crossbar office, which has old dial tone and old-style register senders, very much like Lynbrook 9, except Lynbrook 9 had new dial tone. 394 is a Crossbar 5 Centrex for New York telephone, mostly for 140 West Street, although it did cover other offices in Lower Manhattan. The New York telephone newswire was on 394-1200. There was a special reporting number for the Network Management Bureau on a 394 number, and even security agent Tom Duffy had 394-4184 for a while. Later his number was changed to a 395. Here's two calls to the New York telephone newswire via Suburban Tandem. The second one is recorded with realistic dynamics for the tape recorder he's using. First one is a little bit compressed.
From 140 West Street, this is the weekend edition of your New York telephone newswire on Friday, December 7th. Another use of communication satellites has been demonstrated in the successful experiment by Dow Jones and Company, transmitting pages of the Wall Street Journal via ComSat facilities. From 140 West Street, this is the weekend edition of your New York telephone newswire on Friday, December 7th. Another use of communication
Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Hi. When was the last time you used one of these?
I don't know.
Okay. It's timing.
I hate timing.
I know, but it's something, that doesn't
I
it's,
hate it.
well, I don't particularly like it myself, but...
How about if I return to the conference?
Alright, one last thing though. You stay on and I'll call back, okay?
Why do you want to call back?
To see what it's like when someone's already on.
Okay.
Okay, I'll be back.
Hurry up.
Hi. Hi, Dave.
Hello, good morning.
Okay, fine. Alright, we can return now, okay?
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
That loop around was in a number 1 crossbar office, which did not go through suburban tandem. It just went through over direct trunk. The timing on the loop around was there specifically because the loop around equipment needed to know when the test man was done with his test. Amazingly, number 1 and number 5 crossbar did not provide any kind of a battery interruption or signal when an incoming call hung up. That meant if you had automatic equipment that answered and just stayed off hook indefinitely, there was no signal to tell that equipment that you had hung up. So it would stay off hook, holding the line busy. Now on crossbar 1, there was no timeout. So if you had a device that answered the phone when it rang and then waited for an interruption in the talk power to mean that it's time to hang up, it would never hang up until another customer just happened to get the same trunk for his call to a different number. Now, the 394 loop around didn't have timing, and that meant it was subject to this problem. Now, Ben happened to catch an example of an incoming caller to another number clearing the loop around. You can hear that here.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Dave is hung up, and there's no hard click, so the equipment is held indefinitely. Hark! It's another customer seizing the trunk. The first click was associated with the other customer getting that same trunk, and then when you heard it release and go back to the tone, that was when the revertive pulsing of that other customer was complete, and the marker was just about to connect that other customer to whomever he or she was calling. It's at that point that the equipment did detect a battery interruption, and that made the relays go back and put the tone on. Now, these phone lines that served the loop-arounds had no outgoing service. What that meant was that any time an incoming call was not present, the line was completely dead, no DC. That is very easy for relays to detect, and you would think that that would solve the whole problem. You would think, but no. Number 1 crossbar and number 5 crossbar had this thing they did that when an incoming caller hung up, you would stay connected to the trunk, albeit through relays that prevented you from doing anything to it. We found a way to get around that, but that's a whole other story. You'd stay connected to the trunk. The trunk would continue to provide DC, and in number 1 crossbar, that would go on indefinitely until another caller seized the trunk. In number 5 crossbar, there was 20-second timeout. And this was not a problem for normal telephone service. The problem here is that we have automatic equipment that has no way to detect the incoming call hanging up. And that's why the loop around has to go click, click. It actually has to hang up and pick up in order to clear that useless incoming call that would stay there indefinitely on number 1 crossbar or up to 20 seconds on number 5 crossbar. And by the way, even 20 seconds was inconvenient because a test man testing one trunk after another wants the equipment to clear quickly. So they put that timing click in there every 10 seconds. That means that when the test man is done, it's going to be a maximum of 10 seconds for the equipment to open up again. On the timing loop around, when Dave hangs up, nothing happens. But then The next click immediately causes the relays to detect that Dave is gone.
All right, we can return now, okay?
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
In late 1973 and early 1974, my friends and I were using the 62057 conferences. This was a 701 step PBX, just one of New York Telephone's Centrex-CU customers. 62057 had an intercept line, but the non-working numbers were tied together in individual small conferences, and there was no recording. Here's a recording of Ben calling briefly, first into the busy signal for that PBX, and then one of the conferences where Dave and I are talking. I'm calling from Virginia.
It's clear.
What?
It's clear.
No good. Ben,
I got scared when it was busy. I thought someone else had it. Yeah.
you call up on this and hang up and call back.
Excuse me?
You ring in on this before, hang up and call back.
Yeah. No one answered. I'm glad you were silent. That's the right procedure.
Yes. I was worried.
That was perfect. I mean, there was just no noise, and I thought, what the... Alright, so I call back. Whatchamacallit? I have this on tape. I wonder how it came out.
The concern there was that party line people might discover that conference. We really liked it, and they didn't know about it yet. On many other tapes, you'll hear a semi-automatic intercept system in Brooklyn. There's another one in Washington, D.C. that sounded similar but was distinct, and there was also one in New Jersey that had that same voice, the one that sounds like New York Telephone's voice, but we're not exactly sure is, and the New Jersey one also was distinct. So those three, Brooklyn, Washington, D.C., and New Jersey, which actually had two identical systems, one in North and South Jersey, all were made by IBM, and they had that familiar voice like the Brooklyn one. Southwestern Belle had three of these things, but they were a little more primitive and had a different voice. This is a recording of the one in Houston right before it was going to be replaced.
What number, darling, please?
772-7200.
Will you dial 772-7200? Again, please. This is a recording. Will you dial 772-7200? Again, please. Thank you. Photo? What number, darling, please?
772-9111.
The number you dialed, 772-9111, is not a working number. Please consult your directory and dial again. This is a recording. Please consult your directory and dial again. Thank you. What number you dialing, please?
772-7272.
The number you dialed, 772-7272, has been changed. The new number is 667-2000. This is a recording. The new number is 6672000. Thank you. What number are you dialing, please?
772-7272.
The number you dialed, 772-7272, has been changed. The new number is 6672000. This is a recording. The new number is 6672000. Thank you.
Here's a PBX recording that Ben especially liked, I think because of the strident announcing style of the person who did it, followed by the recordings from the Jacksonville, Florida 4A Crossbar switch.
Recording. You have reached a non-working number in the East New York Savings Bank. Please consult your directory or call 270-6223. 270-6223. Thank you. This is a recording. You have reached a non-working number in the East New York Savings Bank. Please consult your directory or call 270-6223. 270-6223. Thank you.
These recordings from Jacksonville were originally done by a male voice, but this, I believe, in late 1973 was the first time that we heard a female there.
I'm sorry. We are unable to complete your call as dialed. Please check the number and dial again or ask your operator for assistance. This is a recording 9042. I'm sorry. Your call did not go through. Will you please hang up and dial again? This is a recording 9042. I'm sorry. All circuits are busy now. Will you try your call again later, please? This is the recording 9042. Direct distance dialing is fast, easy, and economical. Your local telephone directory, and please dial carefully. Jacksonville, Florida, in Watts Test, 327-237-874.
The recording about direct distance dialing is covered in Long Distance Program 13. Here, Ben is calling the panel office in East 13th Street, 204 2nd Avenue. This is the central office that had a serious fire that destroyed Suburban Tandem in February 1975, along with the various panel offices. There was Gramercy 3, Gramercy 5, Gramercy 7, and Algonquin 4, I think. At this time, late 1973, the Manhattan AIS was handling intercept from the panels. You could actually hear a relay device MFing a 6 followed by a start in order to tell AIS to go into ONI mode, because panels can't MF to AIS. And when he says 9950 as the last 4 digits of a phone number, that immediately goes to another operator, which explains to him that the correct number for the business office is whatever it is. On the first call, he seems to have some sort of a weather forecast on in the background. It appears this was actually being played at the time, not a partial erasure. He was probably listening to High Seas operator station WOO.
Operator, may I have the number you're calling, please?
473-9950.
Operator, may I help you, please? You dialing business office? Hello?
I'm dialing 473-9950.
Number's been changed, so would you make a note of the number, please?
Yeah.
742-9950.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Operator?
Yes, sir?
Where are you located? Well, are you a special operator or what?
Right, sir.
Well, what was the first operator then?
I really don't know. I don't know who the first operator was.
I see. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
That call went through York Tandem over wire, 7-digit revertive pulse. Hard to tell, though, because of the way his tape recorder mutes the sounds. This next call gets rerouted while Ben is sitting there waiting for it to go through. That would happen sometimes. The number 1 crossbar encountered some sort of a problem putting it through York, so it reroutes to Queen's Tandem, which unfortunately has T-carrier both in and out on this particular call. The rerouting is occurring just around the time you hear that glunkety-glunk sound, and then Ben wonders aloud if the call is ever going to go through.
9950. Probably get an operator. If it goes through.
Operator, what number you call, please?
473-9950.
Little girls like this, she's 11. Operator, may I help you?
Yes, dialing 473-9.
Sorry, you calling the business office?
Yes, 473-9950.
All right, the correct number for the business office, 742-9950.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Meriden, New Hampshire was an independent manual up until the middle of 1973. In this brief snippet of a conference, Ben recorded me commenting on the fact that an open sleeve conference appeared within days of that manual office going automatic.
Yeah, and then what happened to it after it went automatic? Yeah, I'm about to get to that. Well, it was manual. That's just unbelievable. And they finally got some nice AE steps. And 3 days, after 3 or 4 days after they went automatic. I mean, it's a brand new office. 3 or 4 days afterward, they had an open sleeve conference in them.
In New York City, dialing your own area code 212 plus from a number 1 crossbar line would have different effects depending upon what office you dialed after the 212. Generally speaking, if it was a revertive pulse or PCI outgoing call, the 212 plus would make little, if any, difference. But if it was an MF call, the 212 would usually get sent along. What would happen after that would depend upon the particular destination tandem's way of handling the 212. So, for example, when Ben dialed 212 plus 960, an office code handled by East 97th Street Tandem 4, it did this. It's a Centrex-only tandem, and it has no provision for handling 212. So you get the vacant code recording 21248. Here's the Centrex code 620 dialed without and then with area code 212.
I'm sorry. We are unable to complete your call as dialed. Please check the number and dial again, or ask your operator for assistance. This is a recording. 21243.
620 goes over MF trunks to 10th Avenue Tandem 1, another Centrex-only tandem. With the 212, you get the vacant code recording, which is supposed to be 21211, but today they seem to be using the vacant code recording of the other 10th Avenue tandems for long distance, 21243. What I think he's trying next is a code that goes through VZ Tandem 2, 2127, without and with the 212. Instead of the recording, he gets silence. Here's one of the codes handled by Lexington Tandem, another Centrex only, without and with 212.
Number you're calling, please.
Here's a call to number 101 ESS intercept in the 334 exchange, which is served out of one of the Centrex tandems, not Amsterdam. I've forgotten which one.
I'm sorry, but the number you have dialed is not a working number.
Getney ring is the phone freak name for a type of ringtone that was found in mostly New York City in old panel offices. By December 1973, the only offices that had this ring were two in Brooklyn. One was 14th Avenue, which had Getney 5, 6, and 8. That's the office that the ring was named after. Different office than Getney 9. The other office that had that ring was Troy Avenue, Brooklyn, which had Troy 3 and 4 and Slocum 6. The last part of Ben's Tape 8, which follows, are first calls to the Getney panels and then to the Troy Avenue panels.
sorry. The number you have reached is not in service or temporarily disconnected. The number you have reached is not in service at this time. The recording.
And that was the tape running out. Tape 8 was short, unusual, and early. Most of Ben's tapes had a very nice way of being narrated. This tape was just short snippets. But as you'll see in other programs, his other early tapes have a certain listenability, let's just say. That's it for this one.